wild and willful. And yes, when I was growing up, being wild was never a good thing, right? Especially when you're a girl, you're supposed to be a certain way. You stand a certain way, you sit a certain way, you speak a certain way, your hair must be a certain way. And the parallel analogies with wildlife. So a wild animal or a willful animal is not a good thing because it doesn't conform to what society says things should be like. It doesn't conform to the orders and borders that we set in society. So right now we have cheetahs coming to India from Africa and you're very upset. They run away to the fields. And the strange part is that willful cheetahs in an agricultural field is a very normal thing because they like that kind of habitat. So the fact that they've run away to the fields should not be that much of a surprise. Willful is a term also that doesn't have a good connotation. It means something that does not listen. It means something that does not abide by what we think it should be doing. And this book, which is about 15 Indian species that are wild and willful, is about challenging our perceptions of what should be considered right for our wildlife. So I'm drawing portraits of different wild animals like tigers and butterflies and rosy starlings, which are a migratory bird, and great Indian bustard, dolphin, etc. And they keep breaking the borders we set for them. They keep breaking the order that we think they should follow. They keep coming out of protected areas. They keep going across continents. They keep going, from one part of the water to the other. And this is a challenge for us as a society. It's a challenge for us from a management and planning perspective. But more than anything, this is an appeal to the heart of the leaders and the policymakers to say that a wild animal does not follow the boundaries we set down. And as people who enjoy wildlife, I think we know this best, but there's probably a need for the rest of society, the rest of India to understand that fences and trenches and cages and safari parks which have enclosures should not be the future for wild animals. That wild animals which are free should be allowed to be free ranging as well. You can't have a free wild animal if it doesn't have a free range or if it's not allowed to move. This is just a tiny snapshot of wildlife in Delhi city where we are, and I thought I'd just start with how blessed we are. We enjoy native plants and native vegetation. There are lots of butterflies in the forest, and I think there's a revolution in butterfly watching in India today because there are so many butterfly groups out there that are tracking butterflies, and also they are growing them or rearing them in their balconies. So people get the caterpillar which comes on their plant and they put it in a box with some leaves and they watch and they make time lapse of the entire process of the chrysalis and the butterfly coming out. And in Delhi, Gurgaon, Bombay, there are people who help others to do this as well. And in a very beautiful, short 15-day time period, they watch this life cycle and they feel connected to something that's still very small but very wild. Butterflies also migrate. So you have butterflies migrating to Delhi from Rajasthan, and they migrate from Nepal to India as well. And they are so fragile, but I think they're very interesting because they continue to be wild, they continue to love things that are native, they love our native vegetation. So for me, I realized that if I follow the butterfly, the path of the butterfly, the places it goes to, I would find all the enchanted places. So in Delhi, when I have walked trying to track butterflies, I see them using islands within the city. So they'll move, for example, from the Central Ridge Forest to another biodiversity park. They'll take refuge and rest on the trees on the central median, and then they'll keep going forward. So even a small thing like if you don't have a tree on the central median, a fragile animal like the butterfly cannot actually cross the road. And butterflies also do become roadkill, just like other animals do, because they collide with the car and they die. So any animal really needs refuge as it migrates or as it moves through the landscape. And therefore creating more native vegetation patches is important for just about any taxa that we talk about. this is something I'm passionate about, and I'm sure we all are. I think the Indian leopard today is the face of conflict with a wild carnivore, right? Because leopards are being killed almost every month, they're being persecuted. There are many issues in terms of conflict with leopards, but I also know that the leopards that actually get trapped or shot may not be the leopard that's causing the problem. So in Uttarakhand, in West Bengal, in Maharashtra, there are leopards and people are having conflict with leopards, and the forest department comes in and takes away a leopard and it got hunted to extinction. Does that make the bird dumb, or does that make us the transgressors? Similarly, this bird, which almost feels like a fossil, because whenever we talk to, again, the policy makers, they always say, but why doesn't it stay inside Desert National Park? Why does it keep coming out? Why does it need so much land when we've already given it the land in the protected area? And I think as wildlife lovers, this is one message we must keep repeating again and again, that a free animal needs to have a free range. It's not going to stay in Desert National Park. That's not what it evolved for. They fly so far in the non-breeding time, we don't even know where all they go. And we've done some, satellite tagging and collaring of these birds to try to understand where all they move. In Maharashtra, the satellite tag birds died, but they move quite a lot is what we've learned. So when they're not breeding, you can't see them. They're just gone from the landscape, and when they breed, they come back to those areas like Desert National Park. So the future of an animal like this, which moves great distances, like the tiger as well. There's a tiger in Kalesar Wildlife Sanctuary. I don't know if you saw the news, it's probably come from Rajaji. And of course, tigers are moving all the time. There was a tiger that moved from Ranthambore to Bharatpur, right? It was taken to Saraska later. There are 22 tigers outside Bhopal right now, in Bhopal actually. And it's also interesting that elephants have come back to Madhya Pradesh. So even though we're doing so many things to the land, animals are also doing things to the land. They are also recolonizing places, as they go ahead, and we therefore need to make sure we give them the passage they need in our policies. I'd love to have a smart city which is full of native wildlife. I'd love to have a smart city which allows for a carnivore to move safely through it. Because actually, if you look at it, most large cities have carnivores. We have jackals and hyenas and leopards in Delhi. And similarly for other places, Guwahati has dolphins as well. Calcutta has dolphins as well, and leopards, and other kinds of carnivores. This is an op-ed, I have a column in the Hindustan Times about how our renewable energy commitments are actually killing the great Indian bustard. And my only ask is, we need to move our solar projects to places that don't have endangered endemic wildlife. It should go on the roof, it should go in special economic zones, but to give away hundreds of kilometers of land in Thar and Kutch, which is the last place for the great Indian bustard, to me, it's not worth it. I don't think renewable energy can come at the cost of extinction of a species. I don't think anything can come at the cost of extinction of species. And when you travel in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, people say yahan Godawan aata tha or yahan great Indian bustard aata tha, and they remember seeing it along with another animal. So the GIB along with black buck, for example, or vultures along with greater adjutant storks in other parts of India. Now all of these are things that you don't really see anymore. And there's something known as generational amnesia, when we forget how things used to be, and then we go to a new normal. So my mother seeing a lot more wildlife in this landscape than me growing up to think that the number of animals I'm seeing is the normal thing, but it's not. Because I've forgotten, my parents have forgotten, my family has forgotten, and as people forget, they think that that's normal. I did my thesis in Saraska Tiger Reserve, and I used to ask the local communities, what's your favorite animal? The oldest people in that community said Shagosh, or the caracal, which is no longer there in Saraska. And I kept saying, kaun sa janwar hai, kaun sa janwar hai? I would show them like all the pictures, and it's the really old guys, so 70 years old. They'd always point at the caracal because they used to see it. And the younger generation, even like the 50s and the 60s, they hadn't seen it, or they don't remember seeing it. So for them, it's normal to not see the caracal. And I think the caracal is doing really badly right now. I don't have numbers, but generally the reports are that they're diminishing across their range, right? And that's also an amazing cat that every Indian should see. And for all the tourism professionals here, I think one of the biggest services we can do to other citizens is to let them see the wildlife of India and the special places of India. And I really hope that we can have tourism in a lot of new places as well. Because we could actually have tourism in all the tiger reserves, the new ones, 53 tiger reserves, and also in the areas that connect tiger reserves. A decentralized form of tourism. So if every Indian can see the great Indian bustard in a nice way, in a way that doesn't disturb the bird, or see the caracal, or even see the hyena, or even see, maybe an elephant, a young elephant with its herd moving, I think that's a service. Because so many times in wildlife conservation, we are talking of जानवर which no one has seen. So if people have not seen anything beyond the tiger, why should they care for it? A lot of people have not seen the Great Indian Bustard, so why should they care for it? Are they going to go to Desert National Park to see it? Maybe not. We talk about narcos on Hornbill, or we talk about a laughing thrush found only in Nilgiris, which people haven't seen. So they haven't seen it. It's just an abstract concept. इतनी सारी चिड़िया हैं, we have 1300 kinds of birds in Delhi, in India, sorry. So why should we care for that one bird, जिसके 100 बाकी हैं, which is hanging by a thread? Let me just skip this. I'm just going to go in the end to the Amur falcon, which is an amazing migratory bird that comes to northeast India in October, end of October. It moves across India and then it goes to Africa. It was being hunted in large numbers in Nagaland. I had a field project there for 10 years, and the community has stopped hunting the bird in Nagaland. And the most amazing part of this story is that we have a new conservation icon now. That this is a bird that people didn't know about. Even I didn't know about it before we started this work. And people have traveled really long distances to see this amazing spectacle of 1 million Amur falcons in the sky. And I think that gives me hope that there can be many kinds of tourism in India. I think there's a misconception that tourism in India is only about the tiger. I think people in India and tourists in India are actually interested to see more than the tiger. And so we set up these homestays, like I'm not an expert on any of this, but we set up homestays and bird watchers would go to see the Amur falcon in November. And there was a lot of interest because we have this vibrant bird watching community in India. They'd also come to see the butterflies in Nagaland. And that has really helped the community to feel honored, to feel respected and validated that people are coming from outside. When I first went to that village, they asked me why we come here. Because as it is in villages, there's only one road that takes you there. So everybody takes the same road, and if you're not from that tribe, you're not from that area, obviously people are suspicious. But today, after 10 years, many kinds of different people go to that village, and the village feels a sense of validation from other people who are coming from outside to their village to see the birds or to live in their homes. And I think the fact that people are, going down that broken road, it's a really terrible road, we haven't been able to fix it, means that there are so many people interested in experiential tourism, and tourism that's authentic, that, is showing different kinds of things. And this is a small falcon, as you can see, it's not very big, size of a pigeon maybe. And even when it's flying in the sky, it's not like you get the best shots because it's quite far, but still people have gone to see this. And I think for me, that's very hopeful, that people are interested in even a small bird that no one had heard of a few years ago. Okay, so let me end here. I'm just going to end with the dolphin. I took this picture in Hastinapur only last week. And I just want to say before I go that the Ganges River dolphin is not doing well today. And this is an animal that we can't see. It's also an animal we can't hear. And when I say we can't see it, that's because it's in the water. And it comes out for like 2 seconds, and it's very hard to take a picture. But our cities are along our greatest rivers, and many of our great rivers have dolphins. So the Ganga and all its tributaries still have the dolphin. And what's happening now, because there's so much traffic on the Ganga, is that dolphins are becoming more and more quiet because they're deafened by the sound. So the latest studies on dolphin communication have found that they're silent because they're very confused with all the ships on the Ganga right now. Because we have the National Waterways Act, which has made kind of a water highway on the Ganga, so you have a lot of barges going down the river. So I think silence is scarier than them talking to each other, because silence is a kind of numbing. So they are blind and they communicate through echolocation, they make these clicks. And we really urgently need to retrofit our boats from the perspective of the dolphin. We need to make it less noisy underwater because it's become really, really noisy. They also really like shallow pools where they like to rest in. So it's important also to conserve those shallow pools. And there's a lot of tourism now in the Ganga, a lot of barges and cruises going down the river. But again, as I said, mitigation or approaching the river as not just something that gives us water, but also something that's a habitat for an animal that we don't get to see very much, but is an animal there all the same. So India is as important for this animal as it is for the tiger, meaning most of the breeding population of the Ganges River dolphin is in India. So it's up to us, really. And I think for the animals we can't see, for the secretive animals, for the animals that are shy like this one, they need a little bit more help from us. And I think the only way forward for us, therefore, is to make our construction, our footprint a little kinder. So there are ways to reduce the noise that boats make by changing the prow of the boat. I'll give an example. The Japanese bullet train is modeled on the beak of the kingfisher. So they changed the face of the bullet train to mimic that of the kingfisher so that it would make less noise. Because we all know that when the kingfisher goes inside water, it makes no splash, it makes no noise. It's completely soundless, and that's why it can get the fish it's going for. I'm talking about the white-breasted kingfisher. So by modifying the shape, the design, you can actually make it less noisy. And similarly for boats, it can be done, and it has to be done. I think it should be a national priority. This is the national aquatic animal, but it doesn't have any meaning unless we make those changes to the things that are in front of the dolphins, which are the boats and the big cruise ships. Let me end here. I think that was a lot of information. I'm happy to take questions.